So, my name is Caleb. I'm 34. And yeah, I'm standing on top of a world that I built myself, pretty much from the wreckage of my own family. But to get how I'm here, you've got to go back. You have to understand the betrayal. It's a cold truth, you know? The kind that just rolls in like the fog off the Puget Sound. It wasn't some random enemy who broke me. It was the people who were supposed to have my back, always. And they didn't. All for my brother. I grew up in one of those small coastal towns in Washington, in a house that, from the outside, looked perfect. My dad, Daniel, a fisherman, my mom, Nora, a librarian, and then there was my brother, Finn. He was the kid who could charm a storm into being calm. And me? I was the other one, the quiet kid, just lost in the hum of circuits and wires, pretty much a ghost in my own home. I mean, Finn was the tide. He just pulled everyone into his orbit. His sailing medals were all over the living room wall. Me? I was the practical one. I rewired our radio when I was 13, coded a little app for the local fishermen when I was 15. My rewards were like secondhand toolkits and old manuals. Good job, Caleb, my mom would say, but her eyes were already drifting back to Finn. I still remember this so clearly. Bounding into the kitchen, holding the acceptance letter to this top computer science program, my hand was literally shaking. I said, I got in, my voice all tight with excitement, and half the tuition is covered. My mom just gave me this thin smile. My dad barely nodded. His eyes were glued to a video of Finn's boat. Then Finn walks in, says he qualified for a national championship, and the whole room just explodes. My letter was just left on the table. College was supposed to be my escape. And you know what? For a little while, it was. My roommate Leo, my professors, they saw my talent. I actually felt visible. But money was this constant, relentless undertow. And in my third year, the tide just turned against me for good. Just out of the blue, the university slashes my scholarship, a 40% cut. It left this $4,200 hole that I had absolutely no way of filling. I did the math over and over, but I was sinking, and fast. So, as a last resort, my back completely against the wall, I called home. I laid it all out, my voice just raw with desperation. All I needed was $600 a month, just enough for rent on this crappy studio with a leaky sink. Just until I graduated. The line went quiet. I could hear my mom in the background sighing about boat repairs and Finn's crazy championship fees. Then my dad gets on, and his voice was just so heavy, so dismissive. You're clever, son. You'll find a way. And then he hung up. My throat just felt like it was on fire. So, I found a way. I had to. I took a third job restocking vending machines in the middle of the night. I lived on day-old bread and bruised fruit I got from behind the market. My apartment was so cold I had to type code buried under a mountain of thrift store blankets. I was running on empty, and one night, I literally fainted from hunger right in the middle of a coding lab. When summer break finally hit, I drove home in my beat-up car 20 pounds later and just completely exhausted. I pulled into the driveway, and that's when I saw it. The thing that changed everything. It was this gleaming new sailboat moored at our dock. Check it out, Finn grinned, slapping the hull. Mom and Dad got it for my nationals training. $40,000. The number just hung there in the air, just mocking me. They couldn't spare $600 a month to keep a roof over my head, but they could find this? A chasm. That's the only word for what happened next. It wasn't just a wound anymore. It was this giant crack that swallowed everything I thought I knew about family, about love, about my own worth. It hit me then. It wasn't that they couldn't help me. It's that they chose not to. I went back to school, and I cut them off. No calls, no emails. I just became a ghost. My anger, it became a furnace. It fueled every all-nighter, every single line of code I wrote. I just vanished. I changed my number, my email, my entire online presence. I poured all of that pain, all that betrayal, straight into my work. I graduated top of my class. Of course, no one from my family was there. My little navigation app, TideSync, it started pulling in real money. I moved to Portland for a completely fresh start. 6 years later, TideSync was a real company with 80 employees. And by the time I was 29, I'd sold a licensing deal for another venture for $15 million. I was untouchable. And then one afternoon, my past just walked right through the front door. I was in Tacoma, touring a software firm I just acquired, when I saw him, just standing there in the lobby.
It was my father. He looked so much older, gray, bent over, clutching this little notebook. He was asking the receptionist if she knew a Caleb Morrow. My pulse just roared. After almost a decade of total silence, there we were, face to face in some sterile meeting room.
He told me my mother was sick, that her heart was failing. He said they'd messed up, that they just always thought I was the clever one, the one who'd be fine on his own. His voice broke when he asked, "You were struggling, weren't you?" But then the final, ugly truth came crashing down. He confessed. Before they even bought the boat, they had cleared $32,000 of Finn's debt from parties, from fancy gear he couldn't afford. They actually remortgaged the house for it. It wasn't just neglect, it was a choice, a cold, calculated decision to bail my brother out of his own mess while they let me starve. I didn't forgive him. Not in that room. And honestly, I still don't know if I ever can. I gave him my new number, told him I'd think about reaching out to Mom, and then I just walked away. Looking back, I see it all so clearly now. The empire I built, it wasn't just an act of defiance. It became my salvation. It was the ultimate proof, not for them, but for me, that my worth was never, ever tied to their approval. I could do more than just survive on my own. I could build a whole world they couldn't even imagine. But that realization, it carries its own kind of weight. So I'll ask you what I sometimes ask myself. When the people who are meant to protect you become the source of your deepest pain, what do you do next? Do you find a way to forgive, or do you just rebuild, all on your own?